All right, welcome everyone. The time is 7:01. Today is Tuesday, January 28th, 2025. Melissa, will you please take roll call?
Yes, of course. Richard Poore.
Here.
Erin Pellegrini. Andy Cabarrus.
Here.
Carl Hubner.
Here.
Melissa Denton.
Here.
And Pinkerton Student School Board Member Fallon Roy.
Here.
Thank you. And also seated at the board table is Superintendent of Schools Bob Thompson and our CFO Jeff Dowd.
All right, please all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, board members, in your packets, you have what looks to be 3 sets of meeting minutes from our December 10th meeting, one from the December 23rd meeting, and then January 14th.
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Before there's a second on that, could I just offer something?
Yes.
That the board may want to treat the December 23rd minutes separately in 2 separate motions.
Okay. So I will make a motion to accept the meeting minutes from the December 10th school board meeting. We'll do these all one at a time, I guess.
And the 14th.
December 10th? We'll
And
do
the 14th.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to accept the meeting minutes from the December 10th meeting and the meeting from January 14th.
Second.
Any questions? All approved?
Oh, there are 2 of those.
And then I will make a separate motion to accept the meeting minutes for the December 23rd meeting.
Second.
Any questions? All approved?
Okay, thank you.
All right. Moving on, Melissa, has anyone come forward with public comment?
There has been no one at this time.
Great, thank you. And now we will move towards school highlights with Dr. Cheney.
Hi, everyone. Good to see you tonight. We have some highlights from the Hampstead Central School over the last couple of months. It's been a little while since I've been here to share some highlights. Our enrollment is now up to 476 students at the Central School. And we have a lot of exciting things going on. One thing that's wonderful is a partnership that our PE teachers have made with the 7th graders. It's a program that they've termed Big Feet, Little Feet, and our kindergarten students meet with a group of 7th graders. They've met twice now. The first time the 7th graders came down, they did some PE class together, practiced some of those skills, and then they returned just before winter break to share a story as well as to work on some of their circus skills that the students were doing in PE. The students in Miss Whitehead's class have had the opportunity, like I said, to meet with these groups twice, and we're looking forward to other events in the spring. In December, we welcomed Cliff West back to the Central School. He reads an animated telling of The Polar Express by Chris Van Allsburg. He really brings it to life for the students. He sets a whole stage in one of our classrooms, and the students board the train, if you will. They have their tickets, they get them punched, they listen to this interpretive reading that includes singing and music and really brings the story to life. The kids think it's really magical, and it ends with them taking home a bell, as in the story, which is the first gift of the holiday season. Our grade 4 students entertained our school community back in December with their musical talents. They sang songs representing a variety of winter holidays and an overall theme of peace and connection. Following the event, the parents had the opportunity to browse the art that the students have created this fall. We were pleased to welcome Recycled Percussion to our school just before the holiday break. They brought all kinds of interesting things to make music with. They showed the students how they could even make music with something as simple as their desk and a pencil. And the students really enjoyed the very entertaining, energetic performance. We were also really pleased that the New Hampshire Lottery donated $2,500 to the Central School for use in our activities account for anything that students may need. And in accordance with policy KCD, this donation was accepted by the superintendent just before the break. Grade 3 took a swimming field trip in December. They visited the workout club in Londonderry to cap off their water safety unit. Hampstead being a community with many lakes, this is a long-held tradition of our physical ed teachers teaching students about water safety and then giving them the opportunity to enjoy and splash around in the pool. The middle school and preschool have also formed a partnership. Mr. Remelard's Flex Block came to the Central School on 2 separate occasions to work with our preschool buddies. At their first meeting, Mr. Remelard's students provided our students with pictures of various shapes that they could decorate. These included things like a heart, a star, and a truck, and this was all on paper templates. The middle school students then returned to the middle school, created these, cut these out of wood, and returned to the Central School where they painted these with their preschool buddies. The preschoolers were in awe of the big kids and just thought this was the most fun and wanted to know when their big kid friends were going to come over and play again. 2nd and 7th grade have formed another partnership. Mrs. Lazaro's class partnered with Miss Griffin's Flex Group, and some of our students in grade 2 took a walking field trip over here to the middle school to participate in various learning opportunities, including literacy and math activities. What was so great was that Mrs. Griffin and Mrs. Lazaro really talked about what the 2nd graders were learning, and her students really responded and tailored their activities to meet our children's needs. The Jingle Jangle is a fan favorite, and on December 20th, we had our annual event in the gym. The whole school participated in a sing-along and dancing to some festive songs. Students wore their holiday shirts and sweaters and hats, and it was a wonderful way to kick off the holiday season. The Ladybug Awards is a program that Mrs. Cameron runs through our library, and she spends time in the fall reading the Ladybug nominees to our students each year. And students in grades 1 through 3 voted for their favorite, and at HCS the winner was 100 Mighty Dragons, all named Broccoli, and Gibberish was the runner-up. Students are just now finding out what won in the whole state of New Hampshire, but it's a nice way for our students to have some voice and choice and to share with the state what they are interested in for literature. This month, our students in K through 4 are participating in gymnastics during phys ed. They work on balance beams, vault, They do floor routines, rock climbing, and more. This is a real favorite for some of our students. It's a little less of a traditional phys ed activity. It's not, soccer or basketball, but it really lets students shine in a different way and show their talents. And finally, we are just about wrapping up our ski club for students in 3rd and 4th grade. This week will be our 5th and final week of the ski club, and we've had quite a group, about 50 students attending this year. We're grateful to Mr. Torelli, Mr. Jocks, and Ms. Poulin, who's going to be our facilitator this year, for supporting this opportunity. Are there any questions?
I'll just comment. I watched the live stream in its entirety of the recycled percussion performance, and it was amazing, and my kids are still talking about it. So what an awesome opportunity for those kids to just see a mind-blowing performance. I've said it before, but I'll say it again. Anytime that we can get middle school students interacting with the elementary school students, I just absolutely love. I love the mentoring, the experience that it gives those older kids, the experience that it gives the younger kids. I just think it's so awesome, and I would encourage us to just continue to find opportunities to do that. And then lastly, I just wanted to give my appreciation to Ms. Poulin, Mr. Jacques, and Mr. Torelli for their work with the ski club. Chaperoning, it is a large group. It's a ton of work to buckle all the ski boots and make sure everyone gets out to their lessons on time. So just huge kudos to them for taking on that task.
Thank you.
Scary because it's not if somebody gets hurt, but it's a when, and then how do you deal with it? So I really appreciate them doing that.
Knock on wood, we've done great this season.
Yes. All right.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. Okay. Moving on to an update from our student liaison, Fallon Roy.
Okay. Oh, okay, sorry. What? Oh, okay. So recently there hasn't been much going on in the school because we just had midterms, but after our meeting in December, students put on the play Euclides, which is the winter play that they put on this year. And then January 7th was the 8th grade preview night, and then following that week, it was on the 16th was course night in a mini club fair for the 8th graders and the families in general. And then semester 2 started today. The new Social Studies Center is officially open, and the demolition of the remaining wing of the Social Studies in the Shepherd Building will start soon. Course selection for next year's classes will be open February 3rd to the 14th. The Student Council Winter Dance is next week, and then following that, the National Technical Honor Society induction is later this month. And then other events will be on the calendar if anyone's interested.
Fallon, have you had the opportunity to tour the new building yet?
I have, actually. My AMP Flex, the AMP program, my Flex is in there, and it's really cool. It's supposed to be an apple tree. That's like the model. I thought that was pretty cool. But,
Nice.
yep.
Great. Any questions or comments for Fallon? Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to current business. Next, a strategic plan mid-year update with Bob Thompson. And his team of merry crime fighters.
That's right. All right. Good evening, Hempstead School Board and community members. I have the distinct honor of kicking off our presentation this evening. We have reached the halfway point of the year, which is just mind-boggling that we're halfway there. And you will recall at the very beginning of the year, we presented our strategic plan deliverables. And for those unfamiliar, we developed a strategic plan, a 3-year plan. We are currently in year 3. And a priority with that plan was to ensure that it was always front and center with the work that we were doing. So we developed priorities and annual deliverables. Those deliverables are developed with feedback from stakeholders, our staff, our school board members, and then we continuously check in on the progress of those deliverables, and we use the halfway point of the year to come to the board and share with you the success that we're having, the progress that we are making or maybe not making in that case. And what you'll hear tonight is really each deliverable is in sort of 3 categories. 1, the most ideal state is it's done, check it off. The second one is in progress. You would expect that at this point in the year, 50% through the year, that we'd be 50% done. And then there's some items that will honestly, if you see them marked as a future goal, it means not that it's not important, but other priorities come up through the year. And I just want to quickly just highlight, and I promise I will not steal the thunder of the folks that are going to come up here after me, but just some of the things that I've seen this year that are absolutely extraordinary. So when we started the year, we did so with the promise to our staff that there would be no new initiatives. We would try to avoid words in the deliverables such as create, and we would focus on things like enhance, improve, and expand. And I think that we've held true to that. There's always things that pop up that are unexpected, but largely a lot of the work this year has been done improving some of our current systems, evaluating some of our systems, and I think it's been very effective. Some of it has already been mentioned. The collaboration that I have seen between the middle school and the central school with staff, with students is absolutely incredible. I had the opportunity to attend when the preschoolers were, when the middle schools were visiting the preschoolers painting ornaments. And just to see the interaction that those students had with each other, the leadership on the part of the middle school students. There was a young lady at the end, I said, geez, you really may want to consider being a preschool teacher. And she said, I never really thought of that, but now that you say it. So we may have actually recruited somebody to come back and teach for us. But there are other pieces too, our multi-tiered systems of support. We went into this year knowing that some pieces of it were not working, and there were some refinements that were made. We're not there totally, but some of the improvements that you're going to hear tell us that we're well on our way to continuing to supporting students. Our outdoor learning initiatives couldn't be any stronger. We added an additional trip this year with Camp Lincoln. I had the opportunity to attend that trip with the 6th grade. It was a great event. The year has not been without some pretty significant challenges. Having an active construction project go on at an elementary school while you're trying to achieve all of these goals is a challenge, and I greatly appreciate the sacrifices that our students and teachers had to make. Also, we are constantly scrutinizing our budget and asking our staff to do more with less resources, so I appreciate their willingness with that. We've also had some significant staffing challenges. We continue to have some staffing challenges with some key positions that are currently unfilled. We are not unlike most other school districts where there are significant teacher shortages. And then also not having enough time. But with that said, there has been so much great work that's been done this year, and I'm happy and proud of the team behind me for all their work. So I'm going to turn it over to them.
Good evening. Back in the fall, I spoke to our core values, and I want to highlight those again. So first, here in the Hampstead School District, we're communicating with positive intent. We approach conversations with a mindset focused on understanding, support, and collaboration. Overall, creating a supportive environment with open, honest, and respectful communication that can thrive. We are honoring the child. So by creating an environment that recognizes and respects each child's individuality, needs, and potential. This may look like personalized learning, inclusive practices, empowering voice, respectful relationships, flexible learning environments, and parental involvement, as well as celebrating all achievements. These aspects honor and support the child's unique journey through our school district and their learning. Our third core value is relationship and team building. So fostering strong connections to create a cohesive and supportive educational environment. This may include collaboration among staff through professional development, regular team meetings, mentorship programming, fostering an inclusive school culture through team building activities, shared vision and goals, and building trust through consistent and honest communication, as well as listening to the feedback of our staff and community. We are acting with integrity here in Hampstead, upholding ethical principles, transparency, and accountability in all actions and decisions. We prioritize integrity and also foster trust, respect, and a strong sense of community among all members. And our fifth core value is culture of collaboration. We create an environment where students, staff, families, and community work together towards common goals, which improves educational outcomes and fosters a sense of community among all stakeholders.
Good evening. Our next slide talks about our 5 strategic priorities. So our strategic priorities are laid out in our strategic plan. This is the last year of our current strategic plan, but this really helps us kind of all get on the same page and focus our work. So we have 5 priorities that we'll report out on tonight from each building. The first priority is to empower our students to become expert learners. This is taken directly from tenets of UDL, and you'll see student empowerment throughout the presentation tonight. Our second priority is to continually examine our programs and practices for relevance and effectiveness, and you'll see 2 slides on this later. Our third priority is about nurturing the well-being of our students, but also of our staff. We are coming to realize that the well-being of the staff will be the utmost importance to ensure that the students are well taken care of. Our fourth priority is improving communication for our staff and community stakeholders. And then also our fifth priority is around facilities and learning environments that match our philosophies.
So at the Hampstead Central School, under Priority 1, empowering students to become expert learners who have the confidence to advocate for themselves and take responsibility for their learning, we had 3 action items, and all 3 are currently in progress. Our first action item was to utilize lesson design studios and the Learning Walks model to help develop lessons that support independence in learning and behavior. Learning Walks are a similar model to our instructional rounds, where teachers pair up with a colleague to observe and provide feedback. This is done in a non-judgmental way, and oftentimes teachers are pairing up with somebody that they believe that they can learn more from. A regular ed teacher, for example, may attend an occupational therapy lesson and see their student and the strategies and skills that are being taught in there so they can support that carryover. This goal will be completed by March 14th. The second action strategy that we're working on this year is we really want to explicitly incorporate common vocabulary, especially around problem-solving strategies, and we're trying to achieve that through universal instruction of second step lessons right in the classroom. So prior to this year, our school counselor had delivered the lion's share of those second step lessons, and this year that's being delivered right in the classroom by the classroom teacher. So the classroom teacher is using that same problem-solving language for the students, is continuing to encourage that in their classroom. There is still continued support from our school counselor. She'll go in and model a lesson. She'll partner up and do one of the puppets for the teacher, and will help with those language pieces. So it's still a collaboration. And finally, our last goal in this area was to increase student goal-setting skills in their What I Need groups by the end of this year. So this week, we began our second data week and are starting to talk about which students belong in which groups, what support do they need to make gains toward their goals, and we'll start some goal-setting work with our 3rd and 4th graders. They're really at a place developmentally where they can start to think about, okay, I can currently read 100 words per minute. I want to read 110 by the end of these 6 weeks, and they can work with the teacher to measure their progress toward that. So here are some pictures of the work that we've done this year. Up at the top left, you see a picture of our staff. We're all wearing similar shirts to support a staff member. Actually, a couple of staff members that could use that support right then. On the right is a picture from our partnership with Pinkerton Academy. Earlier this year, they sent over some students to work with our kindergarten students and to start talking about, what does your future look like? What do you want to be when you grow up? This is what I'm hoping to be. On the bottom left, we have a picture from our Lunch Buddy program. Again, very popular. We had over 50 families this last round. In the middle is our We Deliver post office. This is a student-run program. We do have a couple parent volunteers who come in, but essentially the students do the writing, the sorting, the delivering. We Deliver is off to an amazing start this year. We've had no fewer than 100 pieces of mail delivered each week this year, which is pretty significant. The kids are really enjoying writing to each other. I have a little bit of a backlog on my writing, and I'll get to my correspondence soon. And then on the bottom right is the preschool program that we've talked about a couple of times, an example of one of our preschoolers with their middle school buddy.
Good evening. I am beyond excited to share all the wonderful things that are happening at Hampstead Middle School. Under our priority 1, to empower students to become expert learners who have the confidence to advocate for themselves and take responsibility for their learning, we were looking to expand math enrichment by offering diverse activities that cater to the learning styles and provide students with choice and challenges. So in our 8th grade math class, we are offering extra enrichment opportunities for students by choice. They have choice on enrichment on assignments or assessments. We also we have generated a flex group that is created for quarter 3 for math enrichment. And in addition, we have students teaching lessons in the classroom. So really exciting things happening there, piloting that in 8th grade, looking to expand that to other classes. In addition, we're looking to enhance our counseling program to address the diverse needs of all students. We're doing that through many additional small group offerings, groups on social skills, student leadership groups. We have groups on building champion boys leadership. We have book clubs related to navigating teenage years and getting through middle school. We have 504 groups working on varying needs such as executive functioning and social skill development. We also have our counseling department focusing on themes such as World Kindness Week, Red Ribbon Week, and we have some future themes coming up in March. We're going to be looking at cyber safety and mental health awareness in April and May. The last action strategy here in this priority is to continue to incorporate writing skills across all curriculum. And when I tell you I had so many examples, I'm just going to list a few, but there's a lot happening to incorporate writing in our curriculums at HMS. In 5th grade, we have our whole grade focusing on what they call the TTQA, turn the question around, when answering questions on assignments. Also, our ELA in grade 5 spent their quarter 2 working on writing narrative form. Our entire science department focuses on learning how to analyze data and results from labs by writing analysis in the form of what we call CER, Claim, Evidence, and Reasoning, which is a paragraph format that's used at Pinkerton and was a suggestion from our Pinkerton colleagues. In 7th grade science, they do class openers, writing scientific explanations of images or short fictional narratives in scientific terms. Our 8th grade social studies class does 5-paragraph expository essays. They submit some of these essays to various different contests throughout the year, and these performance tasks follow MLA and Pinkerton research format for the junior essays. And we just launched our Winter Words and Writing Workshop for Q3. This is going to be available for all students. Teachers are sharing this with their flexes, advisories, and class, so anybody can join. Students will have their choice of activities, and there'll be different motivations and rewards, such as pop-up celebrations for participants, and this will culminate in a community evening on March 27th. So we're so excited to invite our community here. And you can see behind me, we have a bulletin board that's getting started for this. And just some pictures for you there. We have our semifinalists for the Patriots Pen essay up on the top left. On the top right, we have a student who's teaching some geometry in 8th grade math class. On the bottom left, we have our fan favorite community event, right? So Playful or Cure, the best event that I've observed here in my time at HMS. In the middle, we have a book club. That's a lunch group, and they were doing a little bit of reading of Chicken Soup for the Teenage Soul while having some soup and some bread with Mrs. Karpinski. And in the bottom, you can see our bulletin board that's going up for our writing workshop. And now we'll move on to priority 2. And so priority 2 is to examine current programs and practices for relevance and effectiveness. The first thing we were looking to do is to really kind of look at our multi-tiered system of support for behavior and try to enhance that system here at HMS. I'm pleased to announce, we purchased the Marsha Brenna plugin and we'll be starting our staff training shortly. We are keeping a log of all discipline referrals to better understand behavior at HMS and develop action plans to target these key behaviors. We have created a Tier 2 support room for behavior and academic support. And within that, students receive academic interventions for things such as long-term absences, for executive functioning skills, and targeted academic support. They also receive restorative behavioral interventions by creating things such as accountability projects, reflections, or apology letters, or different research projects. And now I'm going to invite Mrs. Tomaselli to talk about the next 2 action strategies.
Thank you. So these last 2 are actually duplicates at both schools. So I'll talk first about the mentor program. As you know, we redesigned our district mentor program this year to better meet the needs of educators who are new to the district. As you know, we have educators coming to us from a variety of different pathways now, and we need a program that's more comprehensive in accepting people from all of the different possible licensure paths. So with that, we've created building mentors teams at each building. We have 2 new mentor coordinators who organize monthly learning sessions where those building team members are invited in to share their expertise around a particular theme. We also have created instructional rounds for every new hire so that they get an opportunity to go see our master teachers doing what they do best in classrooms. Every quarter, they visit different teachers. We'll be getting feedback from our new mentor teams in the coming months, and after that, developing our summer mentor training program as we look to make changes to this new model for next year. The last row talks about our math curriculum review, and even though Mr. Thompson said earlier there are no new initiatives, the math curriculum review cycle continues on. So it's not really a new initiative, but we are absolutely looking at best practices in math instruction at both schools this year. We have a very committed, math-loving vertical math committee that has selected earlier last spring selected products that we would like to look at for curriculum. At the middle school, they have already piloted the illustrative math product, and they are now looking at Ready Math, which is a new curriculum from iReady. At the elementary school, which I'll talk about in a minute, they have a different set of products. It's important to know that wherever we land with this, these are the materials we'll be using for Tier 1. And in some cases, in other departments, we've elected to home grow our curriculum because our teachers are skilled and experienced and have a great command over the standards and can infuse it with project-based learning and active labs and other hands-on experiences, in some cases better than written curriculums. So on this next slide, which is for HCS, I'll just reiterate the mentor program is also underway at the Central School with some interesting topics being discussed every month among the mentors and mentees. And also the math pilot is underway at the Central School. At Central School, they looked at Eureka Squared, and it's important to know that the standards in elementary are kindergarten through grade 5. So actually our 5th grade teacher, Lexi Buell, participates in Eureka Squared pilot. And they did a site visit a few months ago to kind of see Eureka Squared in action while they were using it. They have since debriefed Eureka Squared and have moved on to look at Ready Math as well. And we'll be visiting a school that's using Ready Math in the coming weeks. Another goal at Central School is OGAP. OGAP stands for Ongoing Assessment Practices. This is a course that has been sponsored by NHLI for the past few years. I believe they used ESSER and COVID funds to kind of kick this off around the state. NHLI has hosted summer institutes throughout the state in different regions. We're very fortunate to be able to host our own version here last summer. We have a trainer in district. Heather Burkett is an OGAP trainer, which is extraordinary for us. So we were able to host an additive session right here in this very gym, in this very CAF last summer. It was so well attended and the feedback was so positive that the teachers from Hampstead who attended told their friends, and their friends want to participate as well. Some of them do not want to participate during the summer, which is understandable. So we created a goal to create cohorts during the school year. The challenge with this goal, and it is a future goal, is that our course date offerings need to align with SNHU's semester deadlines. So now that we have a better handle on that timing from SNHU, we will have sessions next fall for our Hampstead teachers to be able to take OGAP, either additive or they have several other courses. We could do multiplicative as well. And they'll not only be able to take it on site while they're at work, but also get graduate credit for it through SNHU, which can help our teachers advance in the pay scale and just with their experience. So we're very excited about that. I'm a little disappointed we weren't able to pull it off this year, but I think it'll be better laid out next year. And certainly we want to make sure our teachers can get graduate credit for it. Next up will be Dr. Cheney talking about school culture.
Thank you, Mrs. Tomaselli. So priority 3 is about fostering a positive school culture that honors the emotional well-being of both staff and students. And again, we had 3 action strategies under this goal. And the first was to develop and implement a comprehensive MTSSB, multi-tiered systems of support for behavior system, and practices by the end of the academic year. So we are working to establish clear behavioral expectations, tiered interventions, and consistent data tracking to support positive student behavior. Right now, we are in progress on this goal, and our staff are working collaboratively on developing school-wide behavioral expectations. Each team is looking at our 3 tenets: respect and empathy, responsibility and perseverance, and safety, to really hone in on what does that look like, what does that sound like, and what does that feel like? And what does that look like for a preschooler? What does it look like when a 4th grader is demonstrating these skills and strategies? And teams right now are collecting feedback so we can develop what are those expectations, and then we'll move on from there. An exciting development that we are putting into place is called a target team, and this is both for our MTSS A and B systems, and this is a place where if a student is in need of some additional support, the teacher will bring them up at this team, and it's going to be a group of stakeholders from our building that are equipped to support and deploy resources to help our students. Our next action strategy is around enhancing professional learning regarding trauma-informed responses. This is a goal in progress as well. We are continuing to partner with Janine Richards to provide trauma-informed training. Charlie Applestein was also here at the beginning of the school year to build on the work that we did at the end of last school year. We're sharing regularly professional articles and tips in our weekly staff newsletter, as well as providing time at staff meetings to model trauma-informed practices such as connection circles that we did at our January staff meeting. And finally, we're continuing to implement a series of staff wellness activities, including the Fill Your Cup initiative and seasonal staff events. So a few favorites this year were a popcorn event where staff use many toppings to create delicious popcorn creations, a hot cocoa bar, a soup and chili bar, and a kickball event that we did this fall. Thanks. So here are some photos of some of those pieces in action. At the top left, we have a couple of our staff members ready to go for our jingle jangle that I mentioned during the principal's report. On the top right, we have a very exciting moment from our Chaos and Kindness Assembly. At the bottom left, you can see a couple of our Grammys. The Foster Grammy program is a program that we really are proud of, and a couple of them are leading the Balloons Over Broadway Thanksgiving Parade of our first graders. In the middle at the bottom, you can see Mr. West, the conductor of the Polar Express, with one of our kindergarten students getting ready to board. And on the bottom right are some of our students in the Big Feet, Little Feet program reading their books just prior to break. And now, Mrs. Bernard.
Okay, so for us, under Priority 3, fostering a positive school culture that honors the emotional well-being of our staff and students, our first action strategy was to enhance school-wide service learning opportunities through our advisory program. And wow, our community has just been doing some really great work in this area. To name a few, we wrote letters to veterans in November. We did our candy cane fundraiser in December, and the money raised will go to buying food for our salt box pantry. We had a winter coat drive through our 6th grade advisory. Their goal was 30 coats. They collected 123. This month into February, that is, we are launching the Valentine's Day fundraiser. Our 5th grade advisories are sponsoring this. They're going to be making hearts for children at Dartmouth Hitchcock Medical Center, as well as collecting donations such as crayons, coloring books, and small games. So lots of good stuff happening there. We too are implementing a series of staff wellness activities, including the Fill Your Cup initiative and seasonal staff events, like the kickball game. I still think we won, but I don't know if there was actually a team against each other, but I'm just going to say we won. No, I don't know. So we had that. We are in the process of a staff game, The Amazing Race. So this is a hot competition happening right now at the middle school. Our Fill Your Cup activities have included a hot chocolate bar, popcorn and chip bar, a yogurt and granola bar for our support staff. And every week I give away my principal parking spot to a lucky winner for the week. And then finally, we are looking to enhance our school culture through student leadership opportunities, such as our Leadership Council of Athletics, and then mentorship between HMS and HCS. Our LCA has been created and is absolutely thriving. They've been supporting students at games. They supported the winter concert, band and chorus concert. So they are really doing some good work here at the middle school. And then, as Dr. Cheney spoke about already, we have had so many opportunities for mentorship between the middle school and central school, and I've just really enjoyed being a part of that and getting to see our middle schoolers mentoring the preschool, the kindergartners, the second graders. What great connections that we have forming there. And I think we said we were looking for 6 opportunities, and I can count at least 5 we've had already, so we're going to blow that one out of the water. And some pictures we have here. On the top left, that is when Miss Rubin and Miss Downey's advisories, or flex students, went to the second grade class. In the top right is our Hawk House supporting our girls basketball team. On the bottom left is yours truly. It was Grinch Day, but that's a hot chocolate bar that we provided for our staff. And on the bottom right is one of our groups. We send groups every Thursday to the St. Anne's Pantry to unload the truck for them. So, oh, and I'm still up. So under priority 4 is to improve communication for staff and community stakeholders. Our first action strategy is to create additional volunteer opportunities for parents in the community at HMS. I'd say we're still working towards that, so I'm calling that a future goal. We have had many visitors to our community this year. We had a parent who is an architect visit Mr. Remelar's class to discuss the design process for building a house. We had a person who is an expert in forestry come and speak to our 7th grade science class. We had a student that is a graduate, I think it was class of 2018, come and speak. He goes to West Point Military Academy, and he came and spoke at our first Hawk Awards. We've had the Pinkerton Leadership Council of Athletics come to HMS and talk to our students here. We do have parents involved in a dress code committee. We are going to be forming a group with parents to work on our 8th grade end of the year celebration. So we do have some parent volunteers, but I think this is an area we can continue to work on. The next action strategy is introduction of a new student-led podcast to highlight all the good stuff happening here at our community. We just released podcast number 5 this past week. So that was in my last newsletter. And they can all be found on a folder on the principal's page of our website. So that's a really exciting thing. And I think we have a goal to complete 10, and we are well on our way. And lastly, we are looking to empower student leaders to take an active role in communication in our community, and I think we're doing a lot of work, good work in this area as well. We have student announcements, or student-led announcements, several times a week. We, of course, have our student podcast. We also have student-led assemblies, so our Leadership Council of Athletics actually created and led a whole assembly on their own. And we have student leaders now come and share the news of our school community with our school board. So that's that. And there's just a few pictures for you. So top left there, that's our anti-bullying club giving a presentation at a school board meeting. And the top right, we have our parent volunteer talking about the process for building a house. On the bottom left, that's our Big Feet, Little Feet program with our kindergarten and 7th grade class. In the middle, we have our last podcast that was just released with our anti-bullying club. And on the bottom right over there, that's our mascot Hawk and our student-led assembly.
All right. Around priority 4, improving communication for staff and community stakeholders. This year we have expanded our Lunch Buddy opportunities to a monthly opportunity. Thus far we have hosted 2 Lunch Buddy events, and we have 5 more in the works. As I mentioned last Friday, we had over 50 families join their students for lunch, and it is so wonderful to see the response of not only the parents but of the kids, and not even their own children. Other children are just drawn and attracted to additional adults in the cafeteria. In addition to Lunch Buddies, we will be having 2 family breakfast opportunities. The first Breakfast Buddy opportunity is scheduled for March 7th, 2025, and we hope to see you there. Engagement in community events during the 24-25 school year was another one of our action strategies this year. It was our hope to have at least 2 new or reimagined events for families. So thus far this year, we've completed a Screenagers Elementary Edition event in the fall, as well as a volunteer orientation event. Planning is currently in the works for a family literacy night that will align with our One School, One Book program later on this spring. Additionally, parents of future kindergartners, there's a kindergarten parent night in February, so please join us to learn more about our programs there as well. And finally, in this area, we were working to create weekly staff spotlights on social media and podcasts. We have a few staff members who are really interested in this opportunity. They actually studied with Mrs. Bernard last year over at Pinkerton Academy, and we are working toward getting that set up and ready to go. Our hope is to complete 12 by the end of the school year. All right, great. Priority 5, design learning environments to match our educational philosophies. One of our first action strategies was the development of a self-contained special education program to support the current needs of our students. The great news is we have received program approval. That part of the goal is met, but that really is just the first step as we continue to develop this vision and fully implement the program to be as supportive for our students and frankly our staff in that program as possible. Our second action strategy was to partner with the Department of Homeland Security to conduct a safety audit of the Central School, and that goal is complete. They came to visit us in early December. They walked through the building with us, and they have recently released their findings. These are being reviewed by our safety teams for future action items. And finally, this year we underwent another building project. We added 2 new classrooms to the Hampstead Central School, and part of this priority was around ensuring that staff have enough time to develop these learning spaces to fully realize them. I'm so excited that on halfway day, the 90th day of school, that was moving day last Friday, and we were able to put everybody into their permanent classroom for the school year. The best part for me was Monday. I was out of the office. I received a message from Mr. Torelli with a picture of clay. He has not been able to work with clay all year because he's been on a cart moving from classroom to classroom, so everything has been on paper, drawing, that type of medium, but now kids are getting their hands dirty and really working with different opportunities in art. So we are pleased to say that that one is done. I think there are pictures. Okay, there are. At the top left, you see our second graders. So earlier this school year, our second graders became experts on what expectations are at our school and how to be a good citizen. And they actually presented to our entire school community. So here are our second graders teaching our students that you can be a good citizen by being respectful and responsible. The top right is a picture of one of our Fill Your Mug events. This was our popcorn bar. At the bottom left, we have We Deliver. Again, that is a student-run program with the support of some of our volunteers. In the middle, we have our third graders working on a STEM project called Kane's Arcade. Every year, our third graders work to develop arcade games out of cardboard. And what you see here is our day of play. Students, after they've developed these and tested these games, their friends rotate from classroom to classroom. I take the morning to go play the games as well. And it's just a lot of fun for the kids to be proud of what they've created and engage with each other's work. And finally, on the bottom right is one of the ways that we partner with the community. That's a picture of the Greater Salem Rotary Club coming to visit our third graders. It's a tradition every year that they donate a dictionary to every third grader. And this is actually something kids really look forward to, and they're excited to write their names in it, that this is their book, and they're going to get to use it for many years. One of my favorite quotes from this year was a third grader looking through this book, and he looked up at me and said, "Wow, it's like a Google for words." And he was just like blown away. So, yeah, thank you. Mrs. Bernard.
I'm not going to be that funny. All right, so for us under Priority 5, design learning environments that match our educational philosophies. We too here at the middle school partnered with the Department of Homeland Security to conduct a safety audit, and that is completed. It was completed on December 5th. We received the report in January and are currently reviewing it as well. We want to continue to enhance our opportunities for outdoor learning. All of our science classes are incorporating outdoor learning. Our 5th grade, as we speak, is participating in a Starry Night activity out there right now, observing stars and planets. And I'm getting text messages on my watch right now as we speak. Our 6th grade took a field trip to Camp Lincoln. Our 7th grade took a field trip to the town cemetery and historical society. And of course, we have our green buckets that are on the go for outdoor classrooms, so we can just take them and run outside. So we're doing a lot of stuff to enhance outdoor learning. And lastly, we are looking to enhance professional learning regarding trauma-informed responses. This is also in progress as we had our opening day and train the trainer assemblies with Charlie Appelstein. We did we had trauma-informed webinars within our Winter Choice Board for professional development for our staff. We are going to be doing an Anxious Generation book study this spring. And in addition, we will have Janine Richards coming this spring as well. And I think I just have some pictures. Top left, that was our DHS auditor that came in, and he just so happens to be a graduate of Hampstead Middle School 2011. So I got a picture of him. And then top right there, that is from Camp Lincoln. Bottom left, that is another group that we do. It's just the Sunshine Squad. So they meet at lunch. In the middle, that's a mentorship opportunity between our central school and middle school. That is Mr. Remelard's kids going to the preschool, and they're painting their wooden shapes. And then at the bottom on the right, that is our Hawk House supporting basketball. And that's it.
Okay, so this is our last slide. This is to give you kind of an overview of some of the benchmarks we had set for ourselves back in the fall. And some of these goals have already been achieved. For example, we have a redesign of our mentor program that was done earlier even than November and December. We have student-led podcasts underway. We have currently, this week in fact, is Data Week at Central School. And the teams are meeting to look at the January benchmarks, and then students will be setting learning goals in their WIN groups starting next week. We also have a selection of our new math programs coming that will be done and completed by March. The safety audit is already completed at both schools, so that's checked off the list. We have a lot of trauma-aware practices that we've learned about during past professional learning days, but on our March 11th day, we have Janine coming in as a keynote again. And then we also have our MTSSB systems underway and improving our procedures, and the learning walks are also underway. So I think we are making great progress with our goals for the year.
All right, any questions? All right, thank you. It is a lot to absorb. In fact, I would argue that we have done more in half a year than other districts are able to complete in a year.
I have a whole bunch of stuff because you did an awesome job. On the communication and talking about the kindergarten, something another district has done is they do play dates for the incoming kindergarten class run by the PTSA, which I thought was really cool, so that they know each other, they're more comfortable, and they know the space. The second priority, that's the effectiveness one, is like, that's my baby, where I like the idea that you're talking about. We're going to grow what we're working on. We're not going to introduce a new thing every year that we're then going to abandon. With the new math curriculum, the idea that we're going to be committed to it for a number of years. So if you're a veteran teacher, you're not going, well, here's just another one that I'm going to have to get through. Like, we want to stay with that and use best practices. Common vocabulary, I love. If you come in from outside education, as Andy knows, and there's like 75 acronyms and stuff like that, making it easy to make sure everybody's speaking the same language is good. You talked about MTSS adding training for the recording of discipline. If you're adding Are you taking away something off the plates of the teachers to make their lives easier?
Well, largely my understanding, and we'll certainly get clarification as the training unwinds or develops. This is something our staff has been asking for, is some enhancements and improvements around our disciplinary systems. And MTSS is the method in which we've chosen to do that, but this software enables us to be able to track the data better than we're currently able to do and be able to develop interventions. A lot of the heavy lifting, at least at this point, is on our tech department. Thank you, Joe. And then also on our administrators as well. But I think that this is something that, we'll build in the time for training. And I wouldn't consider it necessarily to be something new, more of an enhancement to our disciplinary system.
Okay. I would love to see if you end up seeing trends on causation, like why kids are doing certain things or things that are coming up, and then how you're working on solving them would be awesome, but that's long term.
Yeah, and I'll actually, with what you just said, Dr. Hubner, I'd want to make a plug for some of the work that Mrs. Bernard has done here at the middle school as a new principal. I'd had the opportunity to sit in. She had gathered a group of teachers to look at discipline data for, I think it was the month of September, maybe September, October, and really, really digging into all of the disciplinary data, looking at causation, looking at root cause, and then, developing some strategies to respond. So what you just described, I think, is occurring. It's pretty impressive, but I think what the software will do is will allow us to be more efficient in our approach. So
I love efficiency, giving teachers more time. UDL, continuing UDL, making sure everybody has accessible learning, making sure everybody's comfortable. I do think that too often people pigeonhole, oh, this is a special ed kid. MTSS, identifying kids that are struggling, trying to bring them back and stuff like that. I think too often you're siloed, and the teachers need to be talking and working together and making sure it's an interconnected system, not a pass-off system, is huge. The first priority, confidence in learning. I just said, make them comfortable, but you also need to push them outside their comfort zone. But knowing what their comfort zone is at the same time. And too often, people think they're pushing people outside the comfort zone when it's actually bad or outdating teaching. So really, that's not pushing limits. So the people iterating and talking to each other, the walkthroughs are great. Design environments. Teachers should be taking risks and trying new things. Get them outside as much as possible. Make it Malcolm. Yeah, always get them outside the building as much as you can. Love the podcasting. I'd love to see something where you try to seek out kids that are unseen, unheard, and find cool things that they're doing. Like very often, athletic kids, band kids are outgoing, confident. We're nerdy kids that are playing D&D or doing whatever. Sometimes they get missed. Yeah, there you go.
and I will say I have met some of the D&D kids, and they're actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah. And then last one was a third priority is emotional well-being. Having systems to help when people are feeling like they're overwhelmed, I think, is the most important. Making sure everybody goes home safe mentally and physically. And I had a question for Fallon. Yeah, you're gonna love this. So when you went to middle school and then now in Pinkerton, do you feel like there's members of the staff that you or your friends feel comfortable going and talking to? Do you feel like you're taken care of? Do you feel like the staff is open if you couldn't talk to your parents? There's somebody on the staff that you could talk to?
Currently here right now.
Sure.
Well, I have Mr. Hoare was my favorite teacher, or Mr. H was my favorite teacher of all time. And I never had family issues, but I noticed a ton of my friends that did would always go to him. Miss Karpinski, Mr. Remillard, Miss Rubin, Miss Aiello, I don't know if she's here still.
It's good to hear.
There's definitely teachers here, and not those. There's more beyond that, I'd say, but definitely those teachers. There's a strong staff here, I think, and me and my friends we always say we miss it here. The staff is good.
Do you still feel like that kind of thing is at Pinkerton, or do you feel like Pinkerton's too big for that?
Pinkerton, it's not as personalized as it was here, because obviously it's smaller and we're younger here, so they kind of have to be more in touch. But I do feel like I've gotten the support that I need, and if someone needs more support than I do, or like there's more need, I could see how they could reach out. If they advocate for themselves, they could definitely reach out and get the help that they do need.
Thank you, Fallon.
Of course.
Some about the data. So I know we had reductions by 10% on the absences and like the behavior. Do we have something where we're going to see the numbers at the end of the year maybe?
We absolutely can do that.
Yeah, to kind of echo that, I
Like
think
historical
where,
data on
Yep.
what's changing?
yeah, I think where, the topic of bullying was a hot topic last year, where MTSSB was basically made a priority this year for the 2025 school year. I think as a board, we could all benefit from kind of a mid-year update, more in depth on where we stand with MTSSB as a whole. I'd love to hear more about that Tier 2 resource room, how things are going, what's working well, what's not, and really get, like Missy just said, some data, some numbers, some tracking.
Yeah, absolutely. We can certainly do that, and we don't need to wait till the end of the year to do it. So.
Great.
And again, I think I've said this before, that, when you see the increasing number in the incidence of bullying that's being reported, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because that indicates that people are willing to come forward. And I know that certainly was the case when, new leadership came into the building. But, to at least have the data as a starting point for our conversation, obviously in the aggregate, so we're not naming names, but we can certainly do that.
It doesn't mean that there's more bullying. It means we actually know what the bullying problems are.
Yeah, and there's still, I know there's still a lot of work to be done, and I know that the team feels the same way. Like, we're not done. In fact, I think we're just getting started.
Lastly, the smallest thing that stood out to me, it was such a positive, was giving up your parking space for the week. It's something that is so little and on the surface, but so meaningful to that person for the week, and creates that excitement and that culture that I think we need. So awesome job there.
Question. I like the parking spot also. I think you guys have done a lot. And I think it's great. You've done a lot of initiatives already this year for this central school. I know that there was like a training, and I saw it in a grant somewhere where people were going to Exeter to see, I don't know if it was restorative circles or something. It was in one of the grants that we read about things that were going to be happening.
We did do a site visit to Oyster River to see restorative circles. That was 2 years ago. We did it as part of our Promising Futures grant. So prior to...
Is that what we would have seen in the fall?
So it might have been mentioned as a continuation of our partnership with Suffolk. So,
Okay.
so restorative practices is really a great way for us to, get out of the cycle of suspend, and repair the harm that happens when there's some kind of infraction to a community.
What does that look like at the central school level?
Oh, certainly. I don't know if you want to have Dr. Cheney speak.
Sure. So our staff have all been trained in Tier 1 circles, which they implement daily with their students. This is an opportunity to make sure that they are checking in with every child every day and getting a pulse and a temperature read on how that student is doing. During these circles, it is not the expectation that they explore if a student is saying that they're having a tough day, but that they're following up with them a little bit later. As far as behavior goes, so that would be more Tier 2 and Tier 3 interventions, we work hard with students, especially at the level that we are. Student behavior is really telling us a message, and so we need to respond to that message and try to understand what the student is communicating with us, while also holding them accountable and teaching them a more appropriate way to respond to that behavior. So if a student, for example, is really dysregulated in class and yelling, that's certainly letting us know that something is not okay and frustrating him or her. But what we now need to do is work with that student on a tiered intervention level, that next time you're frustrated, you can say to your teacher, boy, this math is really hard, or I don't really want to do this right now, and working with them on having some of those strategies. At elementary school, it really is a great opportunity to teach them some of those skills for later on. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. Oh,
I love that practice.
Dr. Cheney, while you're up there,
Sure.
because you brought up the walkthroughs during your presentation,
Yeah.
Where we've gone through the process now of getting one walkthrough a year per teacher, basically, now that we're kind of used to that cadence and used to going through that process, I would personally love to see that increase to twice per year, just giving more opportunities for walkthroughs and introducing, like you said, different teaching practices and different experiences to the teachers.
Yeah, so this year, each teacher's sort of doing a choose your own adventure for their walkthrough of looking at a partner. And then the second part to that goal that we're looking to tackle later on in the spring is something called a lesson design studio. And a lesson design studio takes the classroom teacher who's going to say, I'm going to teach this lesson about reading today. And the peers come together and they collaboratively plan the lesson to remove the barriers for all of the students in the classroom. So they talk through what are some opportunities, who needs an extension, who needs some additional support in this area, and they work together to plan that. And then they go in and they watch the lesson in practice that the teacher then teaches and look at different markers where students engage. That may be what they were trying to remove barriers for. It might be where the students attentive throughout the lesson, were they understanding the material that was presented in the way that it was presented, and taking data on that and then debriefing afterward to see. And the power behind that is everybody's teaching that lesson or a very similar lesson. We're all collaborating and talking about removing boundaries. And even though we're talking about the students in a particular teacher's class, I have a student just like that in my classroom, and that this is also going to pay dividends for the work that I do, not only on this lesson, but on future lessons.
That's great.
I have a question. You brought up, I think it's called Target Team.
Yeah.
Is that something you called something else that was already in place and we're just revamping it, or is it new?
It's a little bit of both. So many moons ago, well before my time, there was what they called a STAR team at the building, and that was a very similar format. That was when I joined the school. They met in grade level teams twice a month to talk about students that might need additional support or might need additional extension. While that is a lovely model, that's a model that we can also achieve through our already established PLCs. And this target team is that next level of really diving deep into, did we provide that intervention with fidelity? Was it consistent? Did it make the gains that we were hoping for? Do we need to change that? Do we need to add intensity? What do we need to do to support the student? It's a little bit of a deeper look with a more collective body.
So teachers can recommend based on certain criteria what they need.
Exactly.
When you guys are doing your tier 2, is that kind of how you're targeting when it's kind of a tier 2 model?
For our intervention blocks, or what I need blocks?
Yeah, for your intervention blocks. I'm wondering with tier 2, what data you're looking at, and then what you're using as your cutoff to determine who needs a tier 2 intervention.
Yeah, so today, for example, we really dove into literacy data. Literacy data is what we have the most consistent for this year because our math program, we have 3 different math programs in progress, so it's a little bit harder for us to grab consistent data there. So we're really diving into literacy and doing that well. So this week we're looking at our Acadians and our iReady data, as well as our spelling inventories and any other class data that classroom teachers bring. We meet as a team and we look through those assessments such as iReady and Acadians. They already have pre-established benchmarks. And so we're looking at those students who are falling below the grade level norms and programming to make sure that they are getting a solid tier 1 as well as intervention. Today, our first grade, for example, we are making sure that those students are getting a true double dip plus that tier 1. It did take a little bit more finagling with the scheduling, but I think we've achieved a model that's really going to show what our students are going to be able to do.
Is the expectation that teachers meet with small groups as part of their Tier 1 instruction?
Yes, there's still differentiation expectations. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the group? Okay. Thank you all for your work in putting that together and the work throughout the year. Okay. Moving on to the Hampstead Garden Club Gorham Grant update with Ms. Tomaselli.
Thank you so much. I want to thank Mrs. Danielle Kerr has been here in the audience waiting patiently to get through our strategic plan update, and I told her it would take about 15 minutes. Take a little longer than that. But I'm very proud to report that again this year the Hampstead School District has been a recipient of the Gorham Garden Grant. We're very lucky to be offered the opportunity to apply. You may remember last year the Central School was awarded a Gorham Garden Grant for our preschool gardening initiative, which has started but will really take root now that the construction project is done. But I've invited Mrs. Kerr here tonight to talk a little bit about our middle school project and just the background of the Gorham Garden Grant from the Hampstead Gardening Club.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. Again, Danielle Kerr from Hampstead Garden Club. We're very grateful for any applications we receive, but we're happy to award them to the middle school to collaborate with the central school. Our Gorham Grant was established in honor of Michael Gorham. He was a Hampstead resident who believed in education of our town's youth and the appreciation and stewardship of our community resources. Each year, up to $500 is awarded to a Hampstead school to fund a project about gardening and natural resources. The grant encourages the conservation of natural resources and environmental studies by young gardeners in an educational setting. All these goals are in accord with Hampstead Garden Club's mission and the wishes of the Gorham's family to give back. So we're very grateful. And as Nicole mentioned, this year we're going to award our $500 grant to the middle school for their year-round greenhouse gardening life skills with Mr. Remillard. The project proposes the installation of a small greenhouse for the middle school for their life skill class, enabling students to extend their gardening efforts beyond seasonal limitations. So it branches off your hydroponic system, which I believe we granted quite a few years ago. Sheila was with me. Sheila Gorham, our founder, was with us when we first came. And it branches off, so the kids will start their seedlings in the hydroponic system, transfer them out to the new greenhouse that they'll build together with Mr. Remillard, and then in turn plant them in the Victory Garden behind St. Anne's Church. Any produce that's grown there will go directly to the food pantry and give back to the community members. So it's completely full circle once it's up and running, and we're very proud to be part of it. Yeah, and look forward to more applications in the future. So thank you all very much. Any questions about the grant? Yes?
Well, I'd like to say thank you for the grant opportunity, and for being able to provide Hampstead Middle School with the opportunity to be able to have the greenhouse. I'd also like to extend my apologies and my appreciation for your being able to wait so long.
Oh, thank you. No worries. I'm grateful. Yeah, my daughter goes to Central School, so I'm grateful for all of you deliberating like this. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Great.
Have a great
Thank
night.
you.
Yeah.
I just want to add one little component. So this also is done in conjunction with Laura Johnson's life skills class. They have an established relationship with Jim Carey over at the food pantry in the community garden, and we utilize 2 beds in the summer. They've already done like summer gardening in the soil, and Laura, I approached her with this grant opportunity, and she said it would be really great if we could somehow extend the growing season during the school year, so it's not just part of ESY. And so we brainstormed and thought a greenhouse might be a viable option. And with Mr. Rem's expertise, we're kind of planning on going from hydroponics to greenhouse to those raised beds. So extending the gardening season for the school year, and it'll start really with the life skills students, but it might expand beyond that once we have this little greenhouse.
That's great. And really ties into the outdoor education themes that
It's awesome.
we know and love.
Yep. Thank you.
And it's an annual grant, so we're happy to branch off it. Yeah.
So thank you so much, and thank you for waiting for us too.
Thank you all.
All right, moving on to the Power School data breach with Joe Dion.
Thank you and good evening. As mentioned in our district communications, Power School, our student information system that we use, had a global data breach over the holiday break. We were notified by email on the 7th of January that there was a breach that began on December 20th of 2024. A threat actor was able to compromise a Power School maintenance account. Once acquired, the threat actor was able to obtain server addresses of customer student information systems, both hosted in the cloud and on-premise. They then ran scripts to offload both teacher and student data. Some of the data obtained consists of directory information and some personally identifiable information like date of birth. At this time, Power School will be offering 2 years of complimentary identity protection services for all students and educators whose information was exfiltrated from the Power School student information system. This will also include 2 years of complimentary credit monitoring services for all adult students and educators whose information was involved. Power School will be reaching out directly to staff and families in the coming weeks. I got some information this morning. So every 90 days, the technology department, our staff goes to Concord with Primex and the Atom Group. And we were privileged to some information that they told us. Right now, they're looking at 62.4 million student accounts were compromised over the world, 9.5 million adults, and yeah, it's a lot of accounts. So, but we are working diligently to continue all of our training for cybersecurity, and it's still the main topic of focus for the technology department. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate the update. Okay. Moving on to the 2025-2026 Hampstead School District School Calendar First Read with Mrs. Tomaselli.
Thank you. So in your packets, you will see the proposed calendar for the 25-26 school year. You will also see the approved calendar for Pinkerton for 25-26. Everyone has that in front of them? Okay, great. So our proposed calendar starts with our new teacher orientation. Will be August 20th and 21st. Those are marked by one NT on the calendar, and the 1X is the Thursday after. It's important to note that this calendar reflects contractual agreements, but new teacher orientation is actually 2 days. It's the 20th and 21st. We will have professional learning days beginning for all teachers on Friday, August 22nd. So for all the teachers listening, that's the day, August 22nd, back to work. We actually followed the similar model last year. And we were testing it out to see how it would be received for teachers to come back on a Friday. And it actually, I think, worked out very well. That opening day, you've been to the opening day ceremony, and then they have time to work in their classrooms and collaborate as teams. And then we start in with keynotes and initiatives and other things starting on Monday. Tuesday, the 26th, will be our open house evening, so that's usually a delayed start for our teachers, and then parents come in and do meet and greets at the school. The student first day is the next morning on Wednesday, August 27th. So for parents listening, that's your important day. August 27th, the students will also participate on Thursday the 28th before we have a nice long Labor Day weekend. So with this model, we are looking to get 2 student days in before Labor Day. The rest of the calendar continues pretty much on cycle with what we've done in the past. We have all of our early release days lining up with Pinkerton except 3. Those are the November 7th parent conferences that we stack next to the November 11th is typically a voting day of some kind, and also Veterans Day this year. So we'll have an early release on the 7th, and then parent conferences that Monday, which might be a little odd for some families, but unfortunately that's the way the Veterans Day holiday lands this year. We also have a half-day early release on November 25th and December 23rd. Those are the days before the Thanksgiving and Christmas holidays. We utilized those days this school year to do flipped professional development with our staff. These are opportunities for staff to complete mandatory trainings that are required from the New Hampshire Department of Ed. For example, mandatory reporting, McKinney-Vento training, Title IX training. We did our own in-house attendance procedures and protocols training. So we kind of utilized the break and gave teachers an opportunity to access those trainings online at their convenience during the break times, and that was very well received. And you saw at the board meeting, I think it was 2 board meetings ago, I showed you the Winter Choice flipped PD board, and we've been reviewing the feedback from that at our PD committee that we had this week, and overwhelmingly teachers really appreciated having the December PD be flipped. Other than that, all of our early releases line up with Pinkerton. There is one date parents might want to pay attention to next year. It's January 27th. That is a day that Pinkerton typically does not have school, but we do. That is when they change semesters, and it's the day our 8th graders go over and do transitional activities. So we just actually did that this past Monday here. The last day for students, the last day of school, is with this draft proposed to be June 17th. It'll be an early release day. And then our teachers have 1 day of professional learning after that. So, pending snow days and makeup days, the last day for teachers would be June 18th. I don't know if there's any questions.
I'll just say I appreciate the challenge and the effort that goes into trying to align this with the Pinkerton calendar to make it easier for parents with students across the district.
I have to give all of the credit to Melissa Post, because Melissa knows what to do with the calendar. There is a lot that goes into making sure that this is correct contractually and that things are kind of followed precisely. So I really appreciate Melissa's attention to detail on all of this, and how she fits it all into the one page is just wildly amazing. It's very tricky to fit all this information in this format, but she does it every year. So,
board members, anything else? I will make a motion to move this to second reading. All approved? Okay. Moving on to communication planning with Missy Denton and Bob Thompson.
I have it. Would you like to borrow my spreadsheet? And I can also help out as well.
Seem like it's projecting. Talk louder. It's really. No.
You want to use this?
Oh. That's okay. 3rd time's the charm. Here we go.
All right, I met with Bob to talk about communication for the district. We went over a bunch of different action items, and I guess the first one was to talk about hosting a school information session for community members to be more involved with our school personnel.
Yeah, so in general, we, as part of the strategic plan, we're going to offer
More information sessions for parents. And if we could target the broader community, because what we're talking about communication really is about people who don't have children in the schools and getting information out to them and promoting some of the great work that's done. So if we invite them in when we invite parents to come in, it might be a good opportunity for a little interfacing with the broader community.
And Bob got a guest speaker already.
No, I'm going to give Mrs. Bernard credit for the guest speaker. But
Thank you. Good job. So they already have a night planned. And the other thing that happened was the screenagers for community events. That was open to the community this year.
that was, yeah. And part of the issue with some of those events is people are very busy. So when we host parent information nights and other things like that, it's not always about the quantity. The volunteer orientation is a good example. We had such a great conversation with a group of parents, but it was a small group of parents. It's tough for people to get out, especially when you have kids. So.
And that information night, you said you had a night plan that hasn't been mass communicated yet, correct?
No, it has not. I don't believe so. Mrs. Bernard. The social media speaker.
Okay.
So more information will be coming.
Great. Thanks.
And just something I know we talked about too was maybe offering babysitting at these
Yeah.
events. Sorry, that was my idea. Like I don't know if some of the HMS, like the NHS kids or anyone needs hours. That might be something
We could definitely do that.
to get more. Thanks. Okay. We talked about school contributions to a town newsletter, but we don't have a town newsletter. So if anyone wants to join the communication board and get that up and running in the community, that'd be great. Regular presentations from the school department at the senior meetings once a month, the senior coffee hour, right?
Yep.
Bob will do that. To talk to our seniors, provide regular contributions to the Evergreen newspaper, which I don't know which that one is.
Yeah, there was there's been sort of the consolidation of some of the local papers, and so now there's an online consortium of media outlets that falls under. It's called the Evergreen, and they publish a digital version of a newsletter, and so that's a new form of media this year that we haven't contributed to them. I think they've only put out one bulletin so far, but there's another one coming up in February.
And the Eagle Tribune is still operating, so Bob was contacting your contact there to get more publicity, I guess. Having technology students possibly create some content in Canva to get out to people in the community. A district representative to attend the communication conference. You have that as 211.
Yeah, so there's, I don't even think that we really talked about that. It was added after our meeting, so the New Hampshire School Administrators Association is having a communications conference. So more and more school districts are hiring communications, personnel. Obviously, with our size, that's a little restrictive with our budget, but that group is holding and organizing more events to help support one another and to help support districts that don't have the funds to have that type of communications position. And so I know Pinkerton does have a communications person. I've had several conversations with her this year, and she's also willing to provide some guidance and support for some of the work that the district would like to do with communications.
And then another one that was on here, the Carriagetown News used to be a newspaper, but now it's just a Facebook group.
Yes, and as of this morning, we are now a member of that Facebook group.
So another Facebook group to
Yeah.
promote. We also talked about just other ways to promote and maybe sending out a school district newsletter to non-children families in town, and how to get that done. So it looks like the Hampstead team will meet to discuss communication planning and follow-up about more ways to do that, to engage with, I don't know what did we call them? Non-student families?
Yeah, the broader community, the larger community.
Larger community. And then I think, and the other thing was about other communication tools, like Pinkerton is now pushing things out through text, and they're using Parent Square, So perhaps another communication platform for the district. And then I think that's everything.
Yeah.
Everything.
So, and I think using the upcoming budget season, so, we have our deliberative session next Tuesday, and after that, our budget will be set. And in previous years, we had a building project, and there was a real concerted effort by the board and by the district to get information out about the building project. Well, this year we don't have the building project, but, we recognize the importance of getting information out about our operating budget. And I think it's a good opportunity for us to try some of these communication strategies out. And I'm going to be perfectly honest. Communication sometimes, when it comes to things like social media, it takes a back seat to like the daily operations of things, quite honestly, right? That in a world where we had a lot of additional time in the day, we'd be able to get out consistent communications. It's challenging. But we also recognize just how important it is. And that's why it was great to be able to meet with Missy and just kind of put down a paper. All right, let's hold ourselves accountable to doing some of these actions. We may not get them all done, but it's good to at least spell out some ways to help improve communication, because it needs to happen. We have a great story to tell, and we need to get it out to the audience.
Well, social media, I forgot, we talked about that too.
Exactly.
But you've done great. You have your own Instagram page, and trouble with posting on the community pages and getting engagement.
Yeah, I just look forward to, like you said, kind of being able to pare down that list and prioritize the things that are realistic that we can tackle. And you mentioned the priority of reaching out to the population that doesn't have children, the senior groups and things like that. I think it's just so important, even if it's once or twice a year, the impact of seeing our faces, seeing Bob's face and representing the district, I think just goes a long way in providing that human element of where we're here, we're willing to talk, we're willing to share, and allow people to ask questions.
On the other end of the spectrum, YouTube Shorts and Instagram videos, totally worth it, and a really easy way to get younger people involved, since TikTok's banned.
Yeah, I would agree. I think I struggle with making a YouTube video, but
That's where you delegate. That's where.
There's a lot delegated to them, but yeah, and we have done with the building project last year. We did a series of videos, and we have talked to it. We've been getting a lot of pressure to do like a snow day video and things like that. So we have to step outside of our comfort zone.
Video
totally
or
get
song?
Let's start. They say under promise and over deliver. How about that? So, and hopefully we don't get to practice that video tomorrow morning. So,
all right. Well, thank you for that. Moving on here, the 2023-2024 Hampstead School District Financial Audit Report. Jeff Dowd.
Yes, very good. Thank you. In your packet, you have a copy of our audit report for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2024. You also have a governance letter. In that letter, that's a letter that is communicating directly to the board on various issues, if any, that should be brought to the attention of the board. I will point out that the letter is dated December 24th, 2024, and this is the first time that we're able to meet, so the report has been out for a while. If you find the report to be satisfactory, typically the board votes to accept the report. I don't know what happens if you don't accept the report, but typically you would vote to accept the report. Unfortunately, it's a very, fortunately or unfortunately, it's a very boring, quiet audit. There really are no findings, and I will note that this was only the second audit in 17 years of record that we were able to get the audit completed in the same calendar year as our fiscal year ended, which is pretty good. I will point out, and this is available on our website, under the budget website, there's a link to this report and all of our other reports as well. I'll note, ironically, if you look at the last page of the governance letter, page 4, they've actually included a comment on cybersecurity policies and procedures, not specific to our district. It's not really part of the scope of what they review, but I'm very pleased that this is showing up on their radar. And they've asked the board to keep in mind in consideration some of the cyber-related issues and consider a review in those areas. And I think they were ahead of the game there, calling for risk assessment, policy updates, incident response plan, employee training, and regular testing. And I think that they're a bit behind on this comment because of the fact that we've really done a great job on that. I'd like to point that out with our technology team, doing a lot of what's being recommended on their hot button list, if you will, this year. So I'll entertain any questions you have on the audit. Unfortunately, the audit itself presents financials in a way that are not as easily digestible as they are, let's say, in our annual report. So I would urge the public to take a look at the audit report if you'd like, and if you'd like to see a more clear, perhaps a little bit easier to digest version of our financials, you can take a look on our website at our budget materials, and we'll have our deliberative session materials coming out very soon as well. I do have a management discussion and analysis, which does pull out some of the schedules that are a little bit easier to read, easier to digest, and offer some comparative information year over year. So that information is out there.
But by no findings, you mean they didn't come up with things that we needed to fix?
Correct, or that I need to fix. And for many years, we had our fixed assets as an exception item, giving us an adverse opinion on governmental activities. That's been resolved, that's cleaned up. They're very happy with that, and so moving forward. So their opinion across the board through all the categories is considered unmodified.
Okay. Yeah, and last time there was like 4 minor things that you needed to clean up,
Yep.
and those have been cleaned up from last year.
Yep, and they come in and review what we're identified in the previous year as an issue, and reviewed it. I don't know if there were 4 very minor issues. If there were, but yeah, no issues.
Yeah, all the ones last year were super minor, if I remember correctly. It's awesome that from the changeover from the old district to now that you've managed to catch up and everything's in good shape. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, I was pleased to see. You can read through this 4-page document pretty quickly to each little category, and it says no findings in each category. So that's great to see. I'm also pleased to see that this is the first year where this got done, like you said, within the fiscal year that it needed to. Yep. So kudos to you on being diligent, being timely, being thorough, getting this done quickly. Board members, are there any other questions or comments for Mr. Dowd? Okay. If there aren't any other questions, I will make a motion to accept the report. Any other discussion? All approved? All right, and then also with Mr. Dowd, the end of year financials update.
Yeah, it's very good. Oh, thank you. There's Joe, right on top of things. So,
sharp.
I have an end of year, well, I shouldn't say end of year, I have a year-to-date projection, which we'll discuss momentarily. Prior to getting to that projection, and for the sake of just making that look as transparent as possible, there are a couple items that I'd like to address ahead of time in terms of a budget transfer. And you'll see the budget transfer request memorandum on the screen behind you. You also have a copy of it in your packet. And essentially, we've had an overspend, or we're running into an overspend situation in other professional services, and we're looking for a transfer of $204,000. Part of that other professional services is the result of our not being able to staff all positions internally. So I'm requesting that funds come out of our salaries line for student services, for special education para aides, in a couple different lines, middle school and central school, $10,000 each, and to transfer some money from tuitions and other schools to that other professional services line. The next one is for specialized transportation, which we are still just seeing significant overruns. I don't want to say hemorrhaging, and I don't think it's a a feature that's unique just to our district. It seems to be really across the state. Last year, we ended up spending more on our specialized transportation than we did on regular transportation. I believe that's the first year that that's ever happened. So we're playing a little bit of a catch-up game, I think, in terms of trying to make sure that we're able to get the budgeting. It's really a wild card because a lot of our students have placements where if we can get shared transportation, that significantly reduces the cost of the ride. And so we're still working on getting a handle on that. We're looking to transfer $220,000 into that line from the tuition line at Pinkerton, which we have more than enough of, based on enrollment, not quite where we expect the enrollment to be. So we've got some extra funding there. I entertain any questions you have on the budget transfers.
My one question around this is, do we see any adverse effects in doing these transfers? Like, are we losing out on anything by taking money out of these accounts that would have been used for something else?
Yeah, no, and in fact, on the other professional services, the first one, because we haven't been able to fill the positions that we're now having to get other professional services to cover, we have money in those lines. We haven't been able to use it. Fair question. Good question.
And the last thing I'll say is just around special transportation. You talked about cost overruns, and I think our proposed operating budget for next year reflects the need in our budget numbers, so that it's clear that it's an issue now and that it will likely be an issue next year.
Yep.
For the fund balance retained $200,000, what did we do last year?
I will address that question on the next, after you've taken action on the budget transfer.
Okay.
Board members, any other questions for Mr. Dowd? Okay. I'll make a motion to accept or approve the budget transfer as outlined by Mr. Dowd. All approved.
Thank you. And so now we can get to the end of year projection, and that'll be the next slide. And that is, I believe where your question probably is, Carl. So on the on our projection, our budget to actual analysis, we always have to look at two aspects. One's our expense and one's our revenue. And our expense surplus and our revenue surplus, I guess, this year. So of the two factors combined, I'm estimating that we'll have about $818,000 in excess funds. Your question, Carl, on the fund balance retention, that's the $200,000. It was this year, last year, the year before that, it was $500,000. So you reduce the amount this year to $200,000, which I think is pretty responsible from a taxpayer perspective. That would be, and I have to, unless the board takes action, that goes back to the taxpayers. So right now we're looking at $1,018,000 as a total potential return to the taxpayers. That includes that $200,000 that if the board doesn't renew it, would go back, if that makes sense. So that's why that's included on there. Some of our favorable lines on the expense side come from salaries from, again, positions that we haven't been able to fill, and this does reflect the effect of the budget transfers you've just approved. So that's all already incorporated in here. We've had some favorable salaries compared to what we had budgeted in terms of staff turnover and that sort of thing. Insurance will be close. I'm estimating about $50,000 there. FICA retirement, about the same. Professional services, you just made a transfer to level that, so hopefully we won't need any more money, and we'll come out flat there on our new budget, on our budget that you just made the transfer for. Utilities, repairs, $10,000. Tuition, both Pinkerton regular education and special education tuition, we had lower enrollments than what we had anticipated and budgeted for, so we'll have some extra funding there. Professional improvement, workshops, not a great amount, $15,000, $5,000 respectively. Supplies, $45,000. And then textbooks, info access, software, $10,000. Fuel, electricity, $20,000. That's really speculative depending on how the rest of the winter goes. Equipment, $5,000 potentially. On the revenue end, we had a much more exciting year last year. We had received some additional adequacy aid, like $300,000, and this doesn't feel like a whole lot. It's $117,000 altogether, $9,000 in special education aid. We're actually going to be below budget for Medicaid reimbursements. Interest will be about $20,000 above where we had anticipated, at least if not more, depending on how interest rates continue to hold out. Equitable education aid, $10,000 additional, not a lot, but we did receive other federal aid, which is under the E-rate program, which our Director of Technology works very closely with, and this, I think a majority of this has helped us to be reimbursed for prior year infrastructure projects. So we don't always know what we're going to get from that. It's not an offset typically in the current year, but it does reflect what we spent and helps to reimburse those expenses from prior years. Other miscellaneous, $2,500, so a total of about $117,000 in additional revenue over what we had budgeted.
So just to clarify on those amounts, the estimated return to town taxpayers and then the fund balance retained, you said that the $1,018,060 would be returned to the taxpayers, but then that $200,000 would be included in that?
Yep, I have to assume that the board is not, you haven't taken action to retain any of the fund balance, but if you did, whatever you retained would come out of that.
But we had a discussion and we decided to move from 500 to 200. I was really happy with, or I was happy with that back then. The fact that special transportation is $220,000 alone increase makes me a little bit more nervous about the 200,000 than before. Especially because, we got stuck with 230,000 extra from the state for the downshifting of special education. I don't think we should take action on the fund balance return because Aaron's not here, but...
No, you wouldn't do that till the end of the year.
What's it? Yeah.
You wouldn't do that till the end of the year.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I
we have more
think
firm
that's
number.
something to be considered for our next full meeting. Because that's 230,000 is a lot for special education, or 220,000 for special education transportation. So it's crazy that we spent more on that than regular education, but that's the way of the world now. So.
Missy, Rich, any thoughts, questions, comments?
I mean, I agree with what Carl said. I think it might be smart for us to talk about what escalation for that will be going forward. This is all with Durham, right?
Correct. Well, I shouldn't say that, a majority.
Most of it.
Yep. And food for thought for the board, if you wanted to give consideration to it. I don't know, this year might be the year to do it, but at some point in the future, some districts do have special education funds that they have, so that if you have overruns in those areas, you can tap into them as needed. They're expendable trust funds. We don't have one. We haven't necessarily had the need for it. Talking to my peers, a few of them have spent 4 years, 5 years building theirs up and wiped them out last year entirely. So it's great to have, and you have that buffer if needed. But it's something that...
Is there any way to get emergency funding, federal government, anything like that, if you get a sudden change in special education need, like you get two $250,000 students that come in?
No, there's nothing federally or at a state level.
Okay.
Aside from reimbursement at the end in terms of catastrophic.
After the fact.
Yeah, it doesn't help at all.
It doesn't help.
And that's really not funded at the level that it should be anyway, so you're only getting 66% or whatever it is.
Okay. Thank you, Jeff.
Certainly.
Appreciate the update.
It might make sense if maybe Jeff can present on what creating a fund like that looks like at our next meeting and what other districts might use them. I mean, our numbers are so high. We might want to consider having a contingency of our own.
Yeah, and I came from a district where we did establish special education trust fund. It really is very similar to capital reserve, that you would take, voters would approve, unreserved funds to go in there, whether it's 50,000, 100,000, 150. And again, you use it for, you have a student that moves in that requires an expensive out-of-district placement or overruns. And essentially, you hold a public hearing and, take public input, and then you can take action. In fact, in some ways, it's less restrictive than the rules around the Capital Reserve Fund. So most districts have a special education trust fund that I'm aware of, at least. So.
Yeah. All right. Moving on to the deliberative session prep. So as far as the upcoming calendar, the deliberative session will take place on Tuesday, February 4th, next week at 7 p.m. here at Hampstead Middle School. The snow date will be February 5th, next day. And then after the deliberative session, the next significant date to be on everyone's radar is the district voting day on Tuesday, March 11th, here at the Hampstead Middle School from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Board members, any questions or comments? Okay. Moving on to the New Hampshire School Funding Fairness Project. Carl, you attended a meeting around that, and I was hoping to get an update on what you learned.
So this was more an advocacy. This is a group that is facilitated by that project to do advocacy and basically lobbying that things in fact do need to change in Concord, not necessarily with specific changes involved, but more that Concord keeps kicking the can down the road and to look at it. And they had asked for school boards to sign on to a letter basically on things that needed to be addressed and stuff like that. I don't know I think if we're going to do advocacy, I think it should be targeted advocacy and on a specific issue or issues, and then to specific people like our town reps, state senator, something like that. Honestly, like off the top of my head, like the change in the special education funding that the commissioner has since said that he's going to walk back, but there's no guarantee. I think possibly doing a targeted letter that we talk to our reps and we talk to our state senator that this has had an enormous impact on our district, and that this is a perceived threat to our ability to educate the children or something like that. I think that might be worth the board drafting a letter on that specific topic as opposed to a wide range. But I think it's great that we're in a community that values education and we're able to fund and do the right thing, but it'd be really great if we could get a little more support. So,
yeah, personally, I'm definitely open to, having a letter go out to our state representatives, with groups like the Funding Fairness Project and others that may have political leanings. I just want I want to remain a neutral party here and not align with any political affiliations, and like you said, the more we can align on a specific topic that we as a board feel passionate about that serves our students and our staff in the district, I think that's kind of the best approach we can take.
Yeah, I think it might be worth, if we talk by email, does that create an informal session?
If you what?
If we email back and forth about possible topics, or?
It could.
Okay.
So we could set up a mechanism where individual board members could provide me with that information and I could put it in the aggregate.
Great. Shared Google Doc or something like that.
Yeah.
But then that is coming from, if we send something, you want to send something as the board topic.
No, it's to basically between now and the next session, if we give ideas to Bob on stuff that we might want to address, like the special education funding or school vouchers or property tax distribution. And then when we come back to the next meeting, Bob can say, this is what I got from the 5 members.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great.
To speed up the discussion for the next board session.
Yeah. Bob just functions as the facilitator, basically.
Absolutely.
As he does well.
Thank you.
Here it comes.
Great. So yeah, well, Bob, if we could move forward with that, that would be great.
Absolutely.
Okay. And moving on to the policy readings. Board members, you have some policies in your packets. Number 1, policy ECAF, audio and video surveillance. Deals with surveillance on school property, emphasizes that audio recordings carry separate restrictions, indicates methods of notifications, includes parents and their right to view recordings when appropriate in disciplinary proceedings.
So for that, Bob, with the school bus surveillance, so say if a student did something on the buses, would we be able to then show that to the parents of the student?
In some cases, but not all. So in order for it to be viewed by a parent, it has to become a student record.
Okay.
And it is only a student record if it's used in the disciplinary process by a school administrator.
Okay.
So if there were an incident on the bus and there was never a review of the video, it's not a record.
Okay.
If it was used, then parents would potentially have the right to view it. You have to weigh the privacy interests of the other students on the bus with the due process rights of the person being disciplined. More times than not, it results in the video being able to be viewed by the parent.
Joe, do we have the ability to like blot out the other people besides the student? Not easily? Okay.
Correct me if I'm wrong, it's typically done in a very controlled setting in which the parent would be in an office with the administrator hearing, they would briefly see what's on the video.
Yep.
And then
Yeah, and you have to, it's not in the law, but it's in case law that the district needs to make reasonable attempts to maintain the privacy of the others in the video. That is things like, blurring out somebody's face. Also, the person viewing, the school administrator viewing the video would write a narrative about what they're seeing in the video.
Okay.
But if those measures don't prove successful, then a parent may have a due process right to be able to watch the video.
Okay.
And Bob, the language in here says the superintendent is charged with establishing additional administrative procedures consistent with this policy to address the length of time that any audio recording is retained, ownership of the recording. So do we have procedures in place or established lengths of time that we hold on to these audio recordings?
Yeah, so I would need to look up the statute around audio recordings. I do know that they're pretty clear in schools around video recording, and I think it's a 2-week threshold. So that's something that we would certainly need to look to make sure we're in line with. And then again, that whole issue of if it is viewed and it becomes an educational record, then we're required to hold on to that recording for the length of time we have to maintain a student record, which is typically the age of 25.
Okay.
But we cannot maintain video recordings in perpetuity. We have to, there has to be a timeline, and it's generally 2 weeks.
All right. Moving on to the next policy here, GCP, professional staff promotion and demotion. The modification removes the provision for demotions, thus prompting the name change to replace the word demotion with the word reclassification in the title. Policy number 3 is JJA, student activities and organizations. These were some revisions that remove participation eligibility requirements for non-enrolled resident students and points to policy JJJ instead, as well as additional language to also point to JJJ for appeals and administrative regulations and procedures, and language exempting students identified as unaccompanied youth under McKinney-Vento from provisions in the policy. Number 4 is policy JJIB, interscholastic studies. The suggested change replaces the current version in its entirety to expand beyond simply just discussing interscholastic teams and to approve connectivity with other NHSBA sample policies. So this one, there was some discussion around, basically students that are homeschooled having more opportunities to play on school teams or club teams, things like that. Number 5, JLCB, the immunization of students. Suggested revisions removes requirement that request for exemption from immunizations for religious reasons be notarized. A provision to reflect a 30-day window for proof of immunizations for children of military families under RSA 110D was added. And lastly, revisions to clarify statutory exemptions and add exceptions under the McKinney-Vento Act for homeless children or unaccompanied youth.
So in this, it gives deference for students that may be in a transient situation or military students to get into school easier and then be able to prove the immunization later.
Yeah, that is correct. There has been some recent legislation, I say recent as in the last couple of years, that really have extended the protections that you typically see under McKinney-Vento, so under the homeless law, to military families. And the concept behind it, just as it is with McKinney-Vento, is get the student enrolled, get them participating in their education, and then the process of getting the immunizations and all of the other school records begins, because it is certainly a barrier when you are homeless or if you are a military family that is rehomed often to be able to get these things in place. This particular policy also speaks to a change in the statute around eliminating having to have exemptions notarized. You no longer need to do that.
So board members, those 5 policies that we just reviewed were the second reading of those policies. So at this point, I will make a motion to adopt those 5 policies as written. Any questions? All approved? And for first reading, we have some additional policies here. Number 1, KLB, public complaints about curriculum or instructional materials. There's no sample NHSBA policy. It was recommended to repeal this policy for purposes of duplicity and point to the more comprehensive policy, KEC, which aligns with New Hampshire SBA.
So Bob, KLB and KEC are kind of the same policy, and we're going with the KEC policy because it is worded better?
That is correct.
Okay. And it basically says if there's a member of the public and they disagree with the instructional materials, they can basically request a hearing with somebody at the central office?
Yeah, they can. And we have a set of procedures that outlines, and we'll update them based upon the board's adoption of the policy to make sure that's clearly stated and in line with the state statute around, this is a topic I think the board is aware that's gotten a lot of headlines as, parents look to better understand the instructional program of schools, so.
Now, this is a separate thing, but so say if somebody makes a Freedom of Information Act request, but it's for something very broad, like say they want to know everything that has to do with civics in the school district, and we don't create thousands and thousands of pages of documents, right? We're able to do it, I think if that's right, we're able to do it by like a thumb drive or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're referring to RSA 91A, which is what we call the Right to Know Act.
Okay.
And so that is specific to government records, not student records, not personnel records, and a government record would be the curriculum. So now we put our curriculum online. Now, granted, some of the units are in the process of being updated.
Okay.
So what I would typically do, and we do get these requests, I would direct that request to our website, and then if the individual had any questions, I would.
They have additional questions. I love the fact that we have it online, so it's easier for people to take a look at and ask you questions about. So, for example, then they can use this policy.
Yeah, and I view this policy applying to something a little different than a FOIA request, in the sense of if someone truly challenges a piece of the curriculum, like I don't want you to read that book as part of the curriculum, or something like that, then this would allow that person to basically have that piece of the curriculum reviewed by a committee.
Yeah. Well, there's been districts where people have had broad-based asked about certain topics, and then it has taken the central office or district office 100 hours in order to put everything together, just before they ever got to this. And I'm glad that we're more proactive and things are online and above board, so it makes it easier for the public to take a look at stuff.
Yep. All right. The next policy, number 2 was KEC, the reconsideration of instructional materials, which we just talked about. Number 3 was IHBB, the Ventures program. This was basically kind of rewriting and clarifying the language around how the qualification process goes into the Ventures program. All of the different factors of how students qualify for that program, and all of the steps that the staff take to reach their decisions.
I like that it's clarified. As somebody that was in the Ventures program and loved it, that's awesome. No idea if I would have made the criteria nowadays, but yeah, I'm glad we're continuing it.
Yeah, from a parent perspective, certainly having clearer language around what gets factored into those decisions, I think, as having kids that have participated and having kids that really want to participate and want to get in there, I think having as clear a language as we possibly can to take away any sort of mystery will just save a lot of headaches here. Right. And lastly, number 4 is IIB, around class size.
So Bob, on this, it says state's maximum ratio. Is that under the new minimum standards, or I thought that they had removed max class size in the minimum standards?
Yeah, it is. So the new language in the newly minted ed regulations that we refer to as ED 306 has changed some of the language from class size to student ratio.
Oh, okay.
There's a change in the language. And again, there really is not a substantive change to the policy, other than we added some language that gives a little bit of flexibility around pre-K to say that the class sizes will not exceed the guidance set forth by the State Department of Health and Human Services. So preschool is this very unique entity in that it doesn't fall under the jurisdiction of the Department of Education in its entirety. It's actually under the jurisdiction of the Department of Health and Human Services. So there's a whole different set of regulations. So, and they change. So we want to make sure that our pre-kindergarten numbers align with that. So that's reflected in the language that is being added.
I still think it's crazy that it's a 25-to-1 for kindergarten is what they consider the max. I think if anybody actually believes in that, they should come volunteer in the kindergarten for a while and see if they think they could handle 25 kids.
Yeah, I can't imagine 25.
Yeah.
18 is tough.
18 seems high, but possibly manageable.
Carl, I would think that the state standard or state's max recommendation will tie in at some later point to adequacy calculations.
Okay. Yeah. It's a whole different thing.
All right. Board members, any other questions or comments around these policies? Okay.
And just to give you the answer to the retention of audio recordings on school buses, it is 10 school days.
School days. Thank you. All right, at this point, I will make a motion to move these 4 policies to second reading. Any questions? All approved? Right. Moving on to board comments and correspondence. Board members, anything to share?
I was just going to say, did we decide anything as far as having some kind of public funding, school funding presentation?
I don't.
I talked about it.
Yeah, I
like
don't.
Before election day.
Oh, you're not talking about the New Hampshire
Not
school
that.
funding?
No, like how schools are funded in our budget and where special ed funding comes from and taxes and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Are you talking about basically like a public education session around special ed funding and
just
education funding in general?
Yes.
I don't think we came up with a plan for that. I think we could lump that into the prioritization of some of those communication plans or goals, maybe that being priority number 1 because it's kind of a short-term urgent need with the voting day right around the corner.
I think it might be good to do like a webinar where you guys pre-record it and then it's viewable afterwards.
I would agree.
Actually not a bad idea.
Make it short enough that it's digestible, but make it easy to send, easy to embed in different sites and different pages.
I was thinking like 15 minutes or less, but I have no idea if you could do that.
I mean, you did it essentially at you both did it at the select board meeting within.
Yeah, I'd be happy to collaborate with members of my team. Maybe we could do like some like YouTube shorts, similar to what we do with the building project, where we could pick a topic regarding funding that has some type of informational value for the vote on March 11th. So it could be special education funding, it could be transportation, it could be health insurance. So I would certainly entertain the idea of doing that.
Yeah, take a look at it.
All of that is great, but I think when you go to the senior coffee thing, a tangible something to hand people that sums that up nicely. Really great, because that's
Maybe you make a PowerPoint that you use for the webinar and you hand it out.
That's kind of a yeah.
So we have deliberative next Tuesday, and then we have a meeting on February 11th as well. And so February 11th would give us a solid month, to be able to plan and roll out something that we wanted to put in place. So I could come back on February 11th with a more refined idea of what we're going to do.
Yeah, take a look at it and let us know.
Yeah.
Great. Board members, anything else? Okay. Moving on to the personnel report.
Yes, I don't have anything for the board to deliberate on. I did just want to mention that I did receive a retirement from Teresa Alcher. She is one of the administrative assistants in the office at HCS, and I just wanted to acknowledge her. She'll retire at the end of the year with over 20 years of service. I've gotten to know Teresa very well. In fact, she was one of the first people I met when I was in the process of orienting myself here in Hampstead. She was very, very helpful with that process. She also played a very key role in the negotiations as one of the Hampstead Association of School Staff, one of the representatives. So I wish her the best of luck with her future endeavors. And yeah, so that's really it for on the personnel side of things.
It's awesome that she did that, even though she knew she was going to retire. And there's a lot of institutional memory that comes with that job. Is there any way to try to hire somebody before she leaves that she could train?
Yeah, so it's a good question. So, you know, anytime we have an opening, we always look at that position, and it's a good time to, just put that in focus. And, there are 4 positions in that office. It'd be a good opportunity for Dr. Chain to look at, who does what and what we call cross-pollinization and training looks like, to make sure. What I would say already is, like, that office is a well-oiled machine. And when, I've been there on occasion when, someone in the office is out, and to see how quickly they can transition from one position to another and cover for each other, it's pretty extraordinary. But it will definitely be a loss, and we'll make sure that we get the most out of Teresa's institutional knowledge. I've on many occasions have said, hey, you can always come back part-time, you can always come back in some other capacity. So we'll see. Still got about 5 more months to work on that. So.
She can be a substitute front office person.
Yeah.
It is
Exactly.
it'll be 25 years.
25, yeah.
25. Wow. As the public face of the school, it's really appreciated what she does.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll just say, having interacted with Teresa a lot as a substitute, as a volunteer, as a parent, I'm just grateful for her and how she conducts herself and how she's contributed to the district for so long. So we'll definitely miss her there.
Great. Moving on to the superintendent report. Last Thursday, we had the opportunity, district administrators and school board reps, to attend the Pinkerton winter meeting with the Board of Trustees and the other sending towns. Always a great event to be able to interface and chat with the other sending towns. The highlight of the evening was the food. I mean, the culinary students prepare a meal unlike anything that you will find in a 5-star restaurant. It's amazing. And also, I had my 3rd opportunity to tour the new social studies building. It is just really well built. I think it's built with efficiency and an eye towards managing costs, but also to the needs of the students. And what we're seeing at Pinkerton is a major expansion of their NECC and their ACT program. Those are programs that meet the needs of students with certain specific disabilities. The expansion of those programs will be a benefit to us as a district because, it will allow us the opportunity to look to Pinkerton as an option as opposed to maybe an out-of-district placement. So a child with a pretty significant disability may be able to attend the same school that their non-disabled peers are able to attend. And when I think about that, it's delightful. So I appreciate everything that they've done to go into designing that building, and now it's finally being used. Moving on, last Tuesday I had the opportunity to go to Concord and testify on House Bill 366, and that was relative to school building aid. And I just want to say that it's not, I do not tend to go to the State House and testify. I'm not a politician, I'm an educator. So on the rare occasion I do, it's for something really important. And so Building Aid, has previously set aside $50 million of aid biannually. There's a bill that would increase it to 60 and preserve it. This is in contrast to other bills that look to reduce or eliminate it. There's a financial interest for the districts. We are on the waiting list. We're number 6. We would receive upwards of potentially $3 million, 30% of a project. We have a project on file with the DOE. We can scale it back. We also have 3 years from the time that we would receive the notice of the award to be able to secure that funding. We also have a new administrator for buildings and grounds at the DOE. Amy Clark has departed, and Tim Carney is now the new administrator. So it was nice to be able to go to Concord, put a name with a face, and start building that relationship. So I've also had conversations with multiple of our state reps, just letting them know how important the meet and greet that Saturday at the library was great. I had an opportunity to talk about Building Aid with them and to try to garner their support. These are dollars that are set aside by the state budget, and if they don't go to Hampstead, they're going somewhere else. So we should do our best to try to secure these funds.
Out of curiosity, do you know how many other superintendents testified?
That day, it was just myself.
Nice.
So, and there were other people that spoke in favor of it. Many of them were elected officials or lobbyists. I also just want to mention that, our policy KCD on donations and gifts, the board has instructed me to provide them with just notice when we have a donation that's approved by the superintendent. So I got a couple. First is an $1,100 scholarship for the Washington, D.C. trip. This is for one full scholarship from the Karachi family here in Hampstead. So I appreciate that. We also have the Hampstead Educational Foundation, and for those of you who don't know, this is a foundation that was established in 1998 as part of the Hampstead Strategic Plan. So this has been alive and well for over 25 years. And every year they award grants, $500 grants to our staff. They do a fundraiser called the Festival of Wreaths. And so I have 3 awards just to bring to the board's attention. So the first one is a $500 grant goes towards the purchase of noise-canceling headphones at the middle school. We also have a grant request for $567 for STEM materials for the Hampstead Central School, and that is from Mrs. Wise Carver. And then we have a $250 grant towards bus fees for the and the cost of a scholarship for the Parker River National Wildlife Refuge. It's a reserve, which is a field trip that they're planning. So very grateful for the support of both the Karachi family and also the Hampstead Educational Foundation. And then lastly, and I brought this up earlier, I just wanted to mention that we currently have a number of open positions, long-term substitute positions. So we have Spanish here at the middle school. We have grade 2. We have a special education position at the central school. And we also have an upcoming kindergarten anticipated leave. These leaves, they have impact. And the availability of qualified candidates is pretty limited. So I put that plea out. Anyone who might be interested in maybe a new career. The position requires a bachelor's degree and a desire to work with children. We can provide you the support. And if it's not for you, maybe you know somebody that might be interested in that as well. But these you've heard me say it before, staffing is a real challenge, and it does not appear that challenge is getting any easier to solve. It seems to be getting harder. So with that said, I'll entertain any, actually, Mr. Dowd, do you want to give us a real quick update on The Central School renovation project.
Yes. So the Hampstead Central School renovation project is, for all intents and purposes, complete from a functional aspect. And I'm delighted that we had a number of moves. And if I asked Dr. Cheney, I don't think that she could probably recitate how many moves that we had. We ended up having some structural issues in the 40s wing, which you were aware of. So we shored up the flooring in 2 additional classrooms, which required displacement from those classrooms, which has all now been resolved. Mr. Torelli has been out of our classroom since day 1, and I'd really like to thank our facilities crew for facilitating all of these moves. We had quite a bit of help from the teaching and instructional staff during the various moves that we had going on, and we even had to dig a little deep. We did want to make sure that we could get our classes back to where they needed to be before the halfway point, and so we did that last week on Friday. We were a little bit thin on the facilities and maintenance end to assist with those moves, and our tech team was able to help out tremendously, so thank you to Joe. Teddy is here operating the cameras. Thank you, Teddy, Michael, and Caesar. Jeff Mackey and his team have done just a tremendous bit trying to keep all of these things going, and they're done, and everyone's back where they need to be. We do a few small pieces to finish up, but really nothing that should impact the school going forward, their educational opportunity and experience that the students have every day going forward. So it's great stuff. I'm very glad that we're at a point that we can say it is, for all intents and purposes, complete. So I won't have any budget numbers until probably a couple months from now, but we'll give you an update as soon as I hear. So great.
And I envision a scenario where 80 years from now, they're going to be tearing up that floor, and they're going to look up and see all the reinforcement and say, I don't know who those smart school board members were that did this work, but thank you, because
They'll still be sparkling.
we could have
Rock
kicked the
solid.
can down the road
Yep.
and left this, for a future generation of school board members to figure out, and we didn't. We took care of it now when we didn't have to, but we knew it was the right thing to do, the right time and the right thing to do. So thank you.
Great. Yeah, and I know my daughter's excited to be in her new classroom, and I'm delighted to hear that Mr. T's back working with Clay. So glad that everything went through, and fingers crossed we stayed at or under budget. All right, board members, any other questions or comments? Okay. We will adjourn this meeting at 9:32 p.m. Thank you all.